made it. So with an uncharged iPad, an uncharged phone, a traffic jam coming here, and my computer running out of ink.
Nice.
Wow.
Still made it.
Still
made it. Yeah, right? Yeah. I feel good, and I can still smile. I printed out this last night, and I made some adjustments today. I thought, it's going to run out of ink, and I looked at it. It's okay. This is why they're so handy. So handy. So, oh, good. We're great. So, for you and I, let's take a moment and do a little grounding meditation just to bring ourselves into this moment. So, if it's comfortable for you, please close your eyes. And just taking this time to just simply meet ourselves where we find ourselves tonight. If it feels available, we can use our breath to meet this moment, to greet this moment with maybe some ease, some curiosity. And we can bring all of that stuff from our day right here. There's room enough for everything. And there's also room enough for us to bring some focus and attention into our practice tonight. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Just that quick administrative detail, if you have your ringer on, you can turn it off or turn it down. And if you don't, that's okay too. Let's see, just our agreements for our circle, try it on. Be willing to try on new ideas or ways of doing things that might not be what you prefer or are familiar with. Practice self-focus. Attend to and speak about your own experiences and responses. Practice both and. When speaking, substitute and for but. Refrain from blaming or shaming self and others. Practice giving skillful feedback. Move up, move back. Take note of who is speaking and who is not. If you tend to speak often, consider moving back. And if you tend not to speak often, consider moving forward. Practice mindful listening. Try to avoid planning what you'll say as you listen to others. Be willing to be surprised and learn something new. Listen with your whole self. Confidentiality. Take home the learnings, but don't identify anyone other than yourself now or later. And you always have the right to pass if you don't wish to speak. So, as we welcome you into week 6, which is bringing our practice into the world. So before we dive into our last session, let's take a moment, and I have a question from a participant from last week. So the question is, if someone has something that really does need changing, an addiction say, how is that dealt with in the context of a loving kindness meditation? Not that one is unworthy of love, but also not something you want to accept. So I thought that was a really great question. So I'm going to say this: when dealing with an addiction, our attitude about the behavior is where we can start to shine the light of awareness and loving kindness. My mentor recently shared this quote from Albert Einstein, that you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. So when we think about, and I'll use a simple example today about an after dinner sweet, that'll be our addiction. We can't break the habit with the same mindset that we created the habit. So this is where mindful meditation helps us to cultivate a relationship with our wise and loving self. And specifically, we can bring in the practice of RAIN to help with addiction and bring in some loving kindness. Remember the acronym RAIN: recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. So I wasn't given a specific addiction, so I just use if someone is dealing with an after dinner sugar fix, and I just purposely started something small because I'm not a therapist and I'm not an addiction specialist. The encouragement is to bring to mind the behavior of reaching for the after dinner sugar fix into the formal meditation practice of RAIN. And we just start by getting curious about it. So if we decide that now is the time I'm going to start to break this habit, it's not as easy as when dinner is done, the dishes are done, and you're going to say, well, I'm not going to reach for that sweet. What happens is probably 10 minutes later, you may reach for that sweet, or the next day you will. So when we can investigate in our meditation practice, we can start with recognizing simply what's going on. We're reaching for a sweet after dinner. Tara Brach says, consciously acknowledging in any given moment the thoughts, the feelings, and the behaviors that are affecting us. It's like awakening from a dream. The first step out of the trance is to simply recognize we are stuck and subject to potentially painful emotions, beliefs, and physical sensations. So we know that we can get into that automatic behavior, that it just automatically happens. Dinner, dishes, sweet. Dinner, dishes, sweet. And so the first part is just to recognize, well, why am I doing that? What is this behavior? So, and then from recognize with a lot of gentleness and ease, we can allow the experience just to be there, just as it is. And this is the key, which means we allow those thoughts, those emotions, those feelings, those sensations to just simply be there without trying to avoid or fix or judge. So we're in meditation, we recognize, okay, I have a tendency to always reach for a sweet. Okay, I'm just going to allow myself to sit with that. That's a really interesting habit that I have. Okay. And then we bring in investigation. The behavior, when we do investigate, we can ask ourselves, especially in context to this sugar fix, what am I craving? What's really going on here? What am I craving? Whatever the inquiry, your investigation can be transformational if you step away from conceptualizing and bring your attention to the felt sense in the body, which means as you're in meditation, you're recognizing, okay, I am automatically reaching for this sweet treat. I'm allowing myself to just notice that with a lot of kindness. And then as I investigate, I notice, well, what am I feeling when I do that? Am I feeling satisfied? Am I feeling disgusted? Am I feeling disappointed? Am I feeling elated? What does that feel like in my body? And then finally, we nurture the behavior. And this is where things start to perhaps shift. So as we're sitting there and we're in meditation and we're recognizing the behavior, we're investigating it, we're allowing it to be, and we start to nurture it. And maybe something, our wise self steps in and says, ooh, maybe this is less about the sugar fix and it's more about this mindset of, I've had a hard day and I deserve a treat at the end of my day. And that's a mindset, from childhood. When we've had a hard day, what's the first thing we do is have something to make you feel better. have a sweet treat. It'll make you feel better. Maybe when we sit, we realize it's less about the sweet treat and it's more about this behavior of an old behavior of treating ourselves at the end of the day because I deserve it. And when we do that, we can just simply experiment with what feels most comfortable, most softening, most opening to our heart. So again, in this instance, we want to break the habit of reaching for a sweet treat. So what we're not saying here is, I need to stop eating sweets after dinner. It's a bad habit, because we know that's the same mind that created the habit. What's going to happen? Maybe we'll be on board for a couple days, a couple weeks even, but it only takes that one time. I always say Easter is kind of the slippery slope. It's the slippery slope. Like, oh, it's just one egg. It's just a bag of Hershey's eggs. And before you know it, you're buying them every time you go to the store and you're eating them all because they're so good. And then you realize, well, what's really going on here? I've gotten into an automatic behavior. Maybe for me, when I do that, there's the scarcity. These only come out once a year. They may never make them again. So what do? I recognize that. I allow myself to have that sweet treat, but I also know my habit, and maybe I don't bring them into the house. I enjoy them, but I don't. But I can also take that separate step back. So when we open ourselves up into saying something like, I'm going to stop eating sweets after because it's a bad habit, what we're doing is really opening ourselves up to the bigger picture of the why behind the behavior and the attitude. And we infuse the spirit of loving kindness into changing that behavior. So Dawn was the participant who asked about it. And Dawn and I, once again, did not do this. We did not prepare this, but Dawn has once again hit the nail on the head with where we will lead with session 6. So we're going to put a little pin in the word why, and we're going to come back to that here in a little bit. But how's that resonate? Dawn, how's that resonate with you? Using rain as a practice for an addiction.
Well, I was just hoping that you weren't going to say that you should accept yourself just the way you are with all your flaws, which you didn't say.
Well, what you're saying, though, that you're talking about a habit that you want to change, which is very different than what you're saying is like, well, I'm always going to say accept yourself exactly how you are, just as you are. And if you feel like a habit is no longer serving your highest good, then we can take time to use rain and investigate it. Okay? All right, so that's where a formal practice helps to, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So that's where a formal practice helps to deepen kind of some of that habituated or that automated response that we sometimes get into in daily life. Okay. Did anyone else have any questions or about the heart practices? If you extended any loving kindness, or this was an interesting question that was brought up from the actual practice. Could you remain balanced when people didn't meet your expectations? I read that, I highlighted and italicized that, and I thought, oh wow, that's loving kindness. And I thought that's one to noodle on, and we could probably do a whole 4-week course on that one. Could you remain balanced when people didn't meet your expectations? So, and again, that in the context of loving kindness. All right, so any questions or any thoughts about rain and using rain as with addiction? Or with, we'll say, a habit perhaps. Okay. So let's take a moment and just do a review of our 5 weeks. So we know that the 4 aspects of mindfulness meditation are seeing things just as they are, learning to be here in the present moment, noticing how things change, and practicing non-judging awareness through the wing of mindfulness and the wing of love. Mindfulness of the body explores the connection to the body and senses as a tool to deepen our practice. We can notice our breath within the container of the body, and remembering that the breath is just a tool to help us steady and collect the mind. It's not the end goal of our practice. We can also choose another anchor, like sound or touch or full body presence. Mindfulness of emotion explores the loving act of making space for emotions that arise in the practice. We talked about RAIN, recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture for sticky, positive, as well as neutral emotions. Mindfulness of thought. When we wake up from our thoughts, we can just pause and open with a sense of kindness and friendliness to the thought and notice what's here in this moment. Again, getting in touch with the feelings in your body or the sensations or temperature around you. Continuing with that style of thought, we're getting curious about our style of thought and bringing, again, a sense of openness and ease to that style of thoughts. And finally, we remind ourselves that loving kindness towards ourselves means befriending who we already are. Meditation is not about throwing ourselves away and becoming something better. So that's where, and that's, I don't know if that kind of relates to that question as well. Goals and habits and improvement, that's all good. But it's the attitude that we have behind it. That's really the key when we talk about this from a mindful meditation standpoint. The attitude we have towards change or betterment. Can we bring that feeling of loving kindness and acceptance and warmth into it? Okay? So that was 5 weeks in a nutshell. So moving on, as we move into week 6, I wanted to start with a couple of quotes. So our practice tonight is bringing your practice into the world. So writer and mythologist Joseph Campbell says, so if you really want to help this world, what you will have to teach is how to live in it. And that no one can do who has not themselves learned how to live in joyful sorrow and sorrowful joy in the knowledge of life that is. And that reminded me of our poem from week 1, Clearing by Martha Postlethwaite. Do not try to serve the whole world or do anything grandiose. Instead, create a clearing in the dense forest of your life. And then I have one more quote from the Buddha, who says, I'm not teaching anything new. There is a path through an ancient forest that leads to a clearing of freedom and well-being. An ancient path through the woods that has been followed by all the awakened ones before me. I have just walked the same path and invite you to do the same. And that's really what tonight's practice is about, is investigating this path. And I've got some guideposts along the way to help us as well. So going back to Dawn's question and that putting that pin in that why, some of you who've been with me over the years know that I typically have a multitude of side hustles. It's just kind of in my nature. I teach yoga or meditation, and I typically have a side hustle or two on this going on. My most recent one was with Noom, and I will say Noom as a health coach. Noom is a weight loss app that uses the psychology-based approach to change eating and exercise habits for the better. That's their official tagline. So I worked for Noom, and we're not here to talk about Noom, but I did it on the weekends, and there was this little hidden gem on the on the new student or new client form, application form. They asked why 3 times. And I always giggled, like, is this like a Beetlejuice thing? Like Beetlejuice, like, why? And of course you had the new clients that would just be like, because I want to lose weight, because. But 85% of the time when people took the time to really investigate, it would typically be something like, why? I want to lose weight for an upcoming family vacation. Okay. Why? Because I don't like how I look in pictures. Why? Because I feel unworthy of attention and love. And when we asked that question, it had nothing to do with food. Mm-hmm. It had to do with love and kindness towards ourselves and how we relate to other people. So my job was to take these whys and massage it into a welcoming paragraph, which I really love to do. I really enjoyed it for a time. There were times though when we were with the group, and sometimes it was heavy. And when you got a heavy one, it felt like everyone was getting heavy ones. And then sometimes they were just really easy and light. But it always was inspiring and enlightening to see, just asking why and sitting with that makes you get beyond just the surface. And so that's our first guidepost. Know your whys. Or in Buddhist terms, we call that aspirations. So knowing, Tara Brach defines aspirations as clear and conscious sense of what matters most to us with a quality of sincerity and motivation and aspiration. So knowing your why or knowing your aspiration helps you stay on track when life gets in the way. And just as importantly, letting your whys grow and adapt and adjust to the cycles of your life. So we've been in this practice for 6 weeks. Maybe you're thinking, okay, I get it. I get these foundations of mindfulness. And I think maybe I want to start a practice. Okay, a formal practice. Know your why. Know your aspiration for doing it. It could be for stress, to sleep better, to feel better, whatever it may be. But knowing your whys helps you so that when life gets in the way, we have that bigger picture of, well, why am I doing this? And we also talk about, especially early on in the practice of starting a formal meditation practice, it's helpful to have a reward or some type of gratification. Again, we're not talking about the sweet treat. But we could say maybe the reward or gratification is, we're starting to feel that relief of less stress. Maybe we're starting to feel, I am sleeping a little bit better, and so the aspiration and the gratification kind of go hand in hand. And eventually what we'll find though is the reward and the gratification gives way again to what Tara Brach calls the homecoming, to be the awareness and love of who we are. So initially we need those little carrots to help us sit on the cushion or in the chair on a daily basis, because we know that it's going to benefit my health, my mental state, my sleep. And then as we do it more over the course of months and over the course of years, we realize, this is really more beneficial to bringing in that fuller range of awareness and love to who I am.
Melissa, could you read that Tara Brach quote again?
Yeah. About homecoming?
Yes.
Yeah. Eventually, part of knowing your whys is also giving yourself a reward or gratification. Eventually, this gives way to a homecoming, to be the awareness and the love we are. To be the awareness and the love we are. So this leads us to the second guidepost, which meditation practice doesn't happen in isolation. And what I mean by that, let me get my notes out here. Your meditation practice is a living, changing, dynamic reflection of your life, where most of us get stuck initially is that we think it has to be a certain way every day from now until whenever. And when we do that, we really limit ourselves from allowing our practice to expand and explore. So when we're doing something nourishing and kind for ourselves, like practicing mindfulness meditation, the effects naturally ripple outward into the world. We become part of this beautiful universal cycle of giving and receiving. We're doing something good for ourselves, and we know that mindfulness meditation is beneficial for others around us. And our practice is influenced by our world, and our world influences our practice. So again, if we look at this through the lens of mindfulness meditation, we understand about giving and receiving. But the two parts of mindfulness, receptive and active. So receptive is when we're sitting, and we're creating kind of this spacious, kind, non-judging awareness to the present moment. The active part includes appropriate responses to the present situation. And what we mean by that is mindfulness meditation isn't passive. A lot of the times, again, when people think, oh, you meditate, you must just go with the flow. That's part of it, but I also am steering the ship that's going with the flow. I'm not just hanging out, eating Tootsie Rolls in the back of the ship and hoping that I get to where I need to go. So a lot of people, I've noticed a lot of people saying lately, it is what it is. It is what it is. I'm not sure how this got started, but it's really ingrained all of a sudden. If I hear it once, I hear it at least 5 times a day. It is what it is. And it's really passive. It is, well, there's nothing I can do about it. But mindfulness meditation tells us, but we can be an active part of this. We can choose our attitude. We can choose our response. We can be active into how we respond to the situation at hand. And again, mindfulness meditation orients us and brings us back into the present moment, which in itself is an active practice, where we can respond mindfully from our wise self, that higher self. Okay. First 2 guideposts. Know your why, and your mindfulness meditation practice doesn't happen in isolation. There's a giving and receiving with the world around you. So far, so good? Okay.
And that's sort of what Jack Kornfield was talking about in that first week that you were sort of introducing the idea of mindfulness. This duality probably is not the word, but the coexisting of...
Yeah, but you can hold, but I don't know if this is what you can hold both things.
Yeah.
You can be receptive and active. We can be receptive with the practice, and the practice is also active, so that we get out of this, that we kind of transcend this duality. I meditate, so it is what it is. I'm going to go with the flow, or I'm going to really grind into it and really get into it. It's kind of somewhere in between. It can be both active and receptive. So that brings us to this third guidepost about formal and informal meditation practices. So a formal practice is just what it sounds like. It's setting aside time each day or once a week to sit and to bring your attention to your direct experience, which includes, again, positive, sticky, and neutral emotions and thoughts. You can be fancy and ring a bell. You can light a candle. You can also let your cat or dog sit on your lap. They really like it when you meditate. You're quiet and if you're on the floor, maybe you're on their favorite spot, they like to cuddle. But you give yourself the emotional and physical space to sit. And when I say physical space, I'm not talking about a meditation shed. Go home and build yourself a he or she shed and meditate in it. It can be as simple as on your bed, on the chair, on a couch, while you're waiting for your tea kettle to boil. You know, we really take kind of the preciousness out of it, in that we have to have complete silence. But that's what we've learned over the course of years, is that it's not realistic. Where in our life do we ever have complete silence? Here it's pretty quiet. I mean, here it's pretty quiet down here in the basement. But most of life happens with interactions and interruptions. And how do we respond to those interactions and interruptions? Sometimes we just notice it. We're sitting and we can hear what's going on. And we're like, I'm still sitting. I'm not getting up. And other times we're like, and I'm done. And I'm getting up and I'm moving on. And both are okay. And an informal practice is what we've touched upon. Respond versus react. So in the heat of the moment, we can pause, we can breathe, and we can respond wisely. But that happens when we have a formal practice to rely on. To think, I really love this respond versus react. I'm going to put it to test. You'll be pushed. You'll figure it out, but you have to practice with it. We have to practice with it in meditation. As simple as when there's an interruption, how do we respond? We get really tight and hot and annoyed, okay? Or do we kind of be like, okay, there's the interruption. Come back to my anchor. Okay, there's the interruption. There's the leaf blower. There's the weed whacker. There are the kids in the street. Whatever it may be, and keep coming back to where we are. So with both practices, I love this, is that Tara Brach said that we have an opportunity to dance with kind of what we call that growing edge. You know, all of us are going to gravitate towards practices that we really love. You know, it's kind of like when in yoga, there are people that really love restoratives and they really hate inversions. There are other people that really love inversions but hate sun salutations. Do you have to do what you hate? Absolutely not. I mean, that's, again, a little bit of a microaggression. But we also want to continue to bring a sense of freshness into our practices. So that growing edge, just exploring other things, other ways of meditating. If we're always focusing on our breath, maybe we start to say, what's it like to have a full sense of my breath in my body, a full body sense, instead of just focusing on the in-breath or out-breath. Or if we're always doing walking meditation, what would it be like to be still for 3 minutes and not be in movement? So that growing edge keeps our interest and it keeps this aliveness in our practice so that we keep coming back to it day after day and week after week. And then finally, our fourth guidepost is cultivating a joyful heart. That was the title of our session, was the 6-week mindfulness meditation introduction and cultivating a joyful heart. And as we continue to tend to and embody the 3 foundations of mindfulness, mindfulness of body, mindfulness of emotions, and mindfulness of thoughts, they create the fertile soil that helps give rise to the qualities of the heart, including loving kindness, happiness, equanimity, and joy. And something we touched upon earlier, that these qualities are already inside of us. You know, it's that quote from Tara Brach, a homecoming to the awareness and love we are. The practice of mindful meditation helps to continually clear the debris that clouds us from knowing and experiencing joy in our daily life. They always use the image of a mirror, or a mirror that's clouded over. And all you have to do is clean the mirror and you can see your reflection. But if the mirror is cloudy, you think that's your reflection. You think that's what you look like. But when you clear the mirror, you see, oh, this is who I really am. This is who I am. And so meditation helps us to continually clean the mirror, so that we can truly see who we are, both inside and out. And so, again, making space for all of this, positive and sticky, joyful and challenging as we walk this path together. And as you walk this path, we deepen our trust in awakening awareness within us. And that's maybe a universal aspiration. We all have personal aspirations of why we do meditation, but a universal aspiration is really awakening that awareness within us. Okay? So those are the 4 guideposts. One more quote to give you. So it's our meditation practice, know your whys. And 3 usually is like always like a good number. Know why. Maybe we just start with awakening awareness within us. And then we get a little bit more clear about what that means, how that looks in our daily life. Second guidepost is that meditation doesn't happen in isolation. It's informed by our world. It's informed by what's happening in our life, and our meditation practice is a reflection of that. And we have both formal and informal practices, sitting down or walking with dedication, and the more kind of on-the-spot practices. And then our 4th guidepost was cultivating that heart quality of a joyful heart, and again, clearing the mirror, truly seeing that awareness and awakening within us. And so Jack Kornfield says, in the end, when we look at our life, the questions will be simple. Did I live fully? Did I love well? And when we meditate, it gives us an opportunity to sit with those, to say, am I in alignment with my beliefs? Am I living from that place of joy? And again, if I feel like, I've gotten a little, not even off track, but clouded. My visions have gotten clouded. Then we sit, and we sit a little bit more. And the last part is, and something we'll tag onto at the end of practice is, this is why we do meditation in a group as well. And I have to say, really appreciate over the past 5 weeks, everyone has been really engaging and sharing with their experience of what their practice has been like when we've done those little interval meditations, because that helps the group and it helps every person when you share your experience, whether you're like, I loved it or I hated it or somewhere in between. It lets the whole group be like, yeah, I feel that too. Ooh, yeah, that resonates with me too. Or, ooh, I hadn't thought about something like that. So when we meditate in a group and we allow ourselves to open up and share our experience, it helps to keep, again, that sense of freshness and aliveness in our meditation practices. Okay? So I thought tonight we're going to end a few minutes early so we can do this student survey. But I wanted to do a guided meditation practice tonight, a little bit kind of along the same lines of being on the path, taking that first step to the path. And if you have a meditation practice, maybe it's the second step on your path. And maybe if you're here tonight and with the intention of over the 6 weeks, I really wanted to start a meditation practice, maybe we just ask that first why. Oh, what's it feel like to step into that to walk that first step on that path? Okay, and honestly, and nothing may arise. Your why self may be like, I'm not really sure. I don't know my first why. And that's okay too. We just put it out there and we allow it to ruminate, marinate with it, and we go from there. Okay. Any questions about any of the past 5 weeks or anything about the guideposts, bringing our practice both personally and out into the world? Okay. Yeah, Val, did anything else?
No, I'm just trying them. Trying them on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that was one of our agreements. Just try them on. Again, if you haven't had a meditation practice, we're just trying some things on. Is this the right time to start one? How does it resonate with you? So let's thank you. So let's take a moment and settle into our practice, and we'll do about an 8-minute guided meditation tonight. So please find a comfortable sitting position. Ring the bell, just begin. Formally start our meditation practice tonight. And we've done our body scans or body surveys over the past 5 weeks. So we know we can take a moment and notice the places our body is connecting to the earth beneath us. You can notice the places where the body's connecting to the chair behind and beneath us. We can gently extend our spine so that it feels awake, and at the same time, there's a sense of ease to it. And we all carry tension in different parts of our body. Sometimes it's our shoulders or tightened hands or clenched teeth. And find yourself with any of those areas. Just bring a softness and attention into those spaces. And so we take this first part of mindfulness and we're just receptive right here into this moment, right where we find ourselves. And then I'd like to encourage you to find an anchor for this evening. And again, that could be the movement of our breath in one part of our body. It could be the sensations of our hands resting on our lap. Or even just a full body presence of this moment. So that as we move through this guided meditation, when your mind drifts, and your mind will drift, we can come back to our anchor to gently meet the present moment once again. Read those 3 quotes that we started tonight's talk with. The first one from Joseph Campbell. So if you really want to help this world, what you will have to teach is how to live in it. And that no one can do who has not themselves learned how to live in the joyful sorrow and the sorrowful joy of the knowledge of life as it is. The first part of Clearing by Martha Postlethwaite. Do not try to serve the whole world or do anything grandiose. Instead, create a clearing in the dense forest of your life. And then finally from the Buddha, I'm not teaching anything new. There's a path through an ancient forest that leads to a clearing of freedom and well-being. An ancient path through the woods that's been followed by all the awakened ones before me. And I have just walked the same path and invite you to do the same. So if it's comfortable and if it's available to you, you can visualize yourself standing at the start of the path. And if that doesn't feel, that's again not resonating with you tonight, maybe we just feel our feet connecting to the earth beneath us. If we're visualizing that we're standing on that path, maybe we can feel the sun on our skin. We can also notice the beating of our own heart within our chest. And just standing here on that path, or just being here in this moment, just breathe right here into your body and connecting into your anchor, touching into this direct experience. And so when we connect into the direct experience, we're connecting into what's happening right here. Our breath, our thoughts, our lists, our emotions, our sensations. You can visualize all of those parts of you nourishing the earth beneath you. They're all part of who you are. And if we bring into practice rain, recognizing that there is a path is the first step on the path. So give yourself permission to enjoy this moment. We've been here for 6 weeks together. And just allow yourself, again, if you're working the visualization, you can be on that path. You can be at the start of the path. And if you're choosing to just notice if an aspiration bubbles forth, you can play in that direction. Or just simply giving yourself permission to enjoy. I've done my first introduction to mindfulness meditation series. Again, just allowing ourselves to feel nourished by this moment, by our thoughts, by our emotions and sensations. Remember, the thinking mind is not a problem at all. When our attention is moved away, come back to your anchor. Touch base with this direct moment. And again, just giving yourself this gift of being right here. Can you make space for any thought that may be arising? Can you make space for an emotion or a sensation? The mind can go in 1,000 directions, but on this beautiful path, I walk in peace. With each step, the wind blows. With each step, a flower blooms. experience for you? Were you able to sit comfortably for, I think we did that, it was probably about 8 minutes.
When they were scraping the chairs, I thought it was jungle music.
Oh.
That's where I was. And then whenever you said, we're walking this peaceful path with the flowers blooming with every step, it brought me back. I was like there in the jungle with the...
You were in it. You were on that path. Thank you for sharing that. I love that.
For some reason, I saw someone carrying a baby elephant into the group. I don't know what it was.
Interesting.
Strange.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing.
I really enjoyed the last 6 weeks, but I find having sat through your guided meditations, I think I prefer that than my own silent meditations.
Yeah,
It's
that's
two different things.
So true, Mary Jane. And I think when we talk about kind of that informal and formal practice, you know, there are times in our lives where a guided meditation is really helpful.
Yes.
It's really helpful to have someone's loving voice and attention guide us through a meditation practice. And then there are times when we just want to connect to our own wise self. And so that's the beauty of it, is that we get the opportunity to play with that. We don't have to say, for the next 10 years, I'm only doing guided meditations. No, you give yourself some freedom to say, when I need that extra layer of support, I can do a guided meditation. And when I feel like I need a little bit of freedom in my practice, then I do my own practice. So beautiful. Thank you.
The rock article was really very helpful to me at the beginning to have that.
Oh,
You kind of
yes.
followed that really well. So
Yeah.
it was very,
great.
very valuable. I really liked it.
Good.
I
Thank
also
you.
like in the evening. I've never really meditated in the evening. I wanted to do it in the morning.
Sure. So what did it feel like for you
Much
meditating?
better, much nicer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure why, but it's
I
just,
love that, Mary Jane. And that's something that we always, there's a big, as much as we hear, it is what it is, there's a big push of everything has to be done in the morning. Everything has to
Get
be
it over with.
kind of jammed between 6 and 9. And then you have the rest of your day free.
Mhm.
But for some of us, it feels more available and it feels a lot more comfortable to find an evening meditation, you know, after dinner, to sit for a few minutes. Sometimes if you're coming back from an activity, it helps to make that transition. So I love that, kind of giving yourself that freedom to say, okay, morning is good, but maybe an evening is, especially as we move through the late spring and beginning of summer, evenings are longer.
Mm-hmm.
So we have all of this yummy time to say, ooh, maybe I don't have to get up with the sun, but I can meditate with the sunrise, with the sunset instead of the sunrise. Beautiful. Thank you, Mary Jane. Anyone else want to share? Yeah, Dawn.
I read an article this week and they were calling it Zen mindfulness.
Okay.
And the emphasis was more on noticing
Okay.
and awareness rather than sitting.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just a different approach, or is that more the act, what you're referring to as the active type of meditation?
That's a great question, and I would say that's another type of meditation. So I love Jack Kornfield always says he teaches meditations with an S, because there are innumerable. And when you think of it as Zen, you know, and that's, and I had just listened to a talk today, and they really touched upon that, is that some meditations will just take that part, just the noticing, and that's the meditation. Other parts will just do body sensations, and that's the meditation. Other meditations will just focus on the breath, and that's the meditation. Mindfulness meditation through insight meditation focuses on all of those, brings kind of all of those into play. So again, it's almost what Mary Jane said, you know, play with it. If you read that and you're like, ooh, that's interesting. All right, but then just notice, what does that feel like? And then if you feel like I'm noticing and I don't notice anything in my body, then we bring our attention into our body and we go from there. So beautiful, thank you. Beth.
Years ago, I did a guided, special place meditation. And in the course of this, I find myself going back to that. I had almost I guess I put that on a shelf somewhere. I
Yeah.
forgot about it.
Yeah.
That's very healing for me.
I love that.
And during the course of that, like, where are you?
Mhm.
What's the weather like?
Mhm.
You know, like when you start to vision that special place.
Yeah.
I found that very comforting.
And thank you for sharing that, because you really hit upon something. Sometimes when we are in that meditative state, it's helpful to have kind of that sweet spot. You know, we talked about the sweet spot between the in-breath and the out-breath and the out-breath and the in-breath, but the sweet spot can also be kind of that place that makes me feel, what's that look like? Is it the beach? Is it a home? Is it a childhood home? Is it in the forest? You know, and when you can really picture it, it can help to bring that sense of calmness
When
and
you say
ease.
who's there, what's the weather, it kind of actually puts you there.
Yeah.
You know,
I love that. I love that. Again, that's another type of guided meditation that you
it
can
just
use.
helped me remember that.
That's pretty cool. So it was always there. Again,
Yeah.
kind of I'm polishing that mirror
Mhm.
again, for sure. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Beth. Monty,
I don't know if this counts or not.
it all counts.
I find when I go to bed, I start thinking about everything, so I try to meditate, if you will.
Yeah.
Just to breathe in and breathe out and say, breathe in and breathe out,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And
Beautiful.
It does help me.
Beautiful. I love that. And that's because our mind is active. Again, we keep going back to an active mind is not the problem. It becomes an issue when we're trying to sleep. And so what we do is we take our attention from the mind into the body is what you're doing. You're doing mindfulness of body and breath and just saying breathe in and breathe out. And, you know, another layer of that is that when those thoughts come up, we can say, oh, thank you, to-do list. I'm good now. Thank you, planning mode. I'm going to go to sleep now. And we talk about naming those thoughts, those top 10 tunes. They'll probably keep circling through every night so we can make space for them. Or I love what you said, kind of bringing your attention into the body. And you said that helped.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Beautiful. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Larry.
I have trouble sleeping through, like I wake up at a certain time.
Mhm.
And what I've been doing with the aid of this is just laying there.
Okay.
Right. Not thinking of anything.
How's that been?
I was never able to do that before.
Ooh, how's that feel for you?
Strange.
Yeah. Yeah, anytime we do something new, it's gonna feel strange. Does it help you with your sleep? Are you noticing a change in your sleep?
Yeah, a little bit.
Good.
At the end.
Good.
I had to make some parameters as to when I was going to get up. You know, I set
Yeah.
a time. Okay, I'm not going to lay here all day.
Sure.
Although I'd like to. Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes we can kind of throw those parameters out and be like, well, maybe I will. I love that, Larry. And as Larry is a long-term meditator, it's nice to kind of change and allow things to flow and adapt to where we are to help our situation and where we are in our life too, instead of saying it has to be, I have to sit on a cushion for 25 minutes every day. There's a lot of wiggle room around that. Okay, anything else?
You know, I'm waking up thinking, I need my Melissa. I need your voice to take me through that. I hope that's not embarrassing, but it's the truth.
And initially it'll feel that way just because it's the first time that you've meditated and I was the instructor, and then eventually your wise voice will come through. So we just want to make space for Val's wise voice to come through. She's in there. She's in there. I've just had a little bit more practice with my voice moving forward. So thank you for sharing that. All right. Oh, perfect. So on that note, hold tight.